Hello, beautiful people. Today is 16th of July. My name is Sahil and welcome to Newspaper Analysis. Friends, today we'll see a quote from the Benjamin Franklin, the founding father of USA and the propounder of the American Enlightenment movement. He says that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So, friends, this particular statement reflects the importance of skill, education, and know how in respect to a development of a particular nation, of a society, or of an individual. And on the basis of this particular premise, the countries such as India, which is looking forward to be a knowledge economy into the 21st century, should make this investment as early as possible. Moreover, even the Sustainable Developmental Goals, the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and United Nations Covenant for the Child Rights also called for the rapid investment into the knowledge. So, friends, we can use this particular quote into the GS paper number 2, Social Justice, Education, Skill, Literacy related questions. Now, friends, the main question that I gave you yesterday. So, question says that the rising casualties of police is not a reflection of mere political police nexus and thus demand for police reforms. Also, enumerate the reason for rising police casualties. Now, as I say in every day, that your answer needs to be divided into the intro, body, and conclusion. And first, into the intro, that police brutalities is an example of a protector becoming a predator, and this precedence starts a tendency where the citizenry of a country loses the faith into the enforcement agencies. Now, guys, the police brutalities cannot be taken because deciding the merit of a case is not the work of the executive, rather, it is the work of a judiciary. And in this particular context, the extrajudicial killings, the torture, etc., sets a precedence which goes against the society guided by rules and regulations. Now, guys, into the case of police reforms, we can mention the 2016 Supreme Court judgment into the Prakash Singh case, where the seven directives were given. Already, we had discussed all these seven directives. Moreover, guys, the reform of Malimat Committee, where it has been said that the entire police, justice, criminal law system needs to be reformed, that can also be taken. Moreover, if we see the data from the National Crime Record Bureau, then we can see that actually the police brutality is an outcome of the frustration into the policing system, and this frustration is the result of low manpower, low economic resources, financial resources. Therefore, we need to enhance the working conditions also here, so that the frustration level among the police personnel can be reduced. So all these things will constitute the reforms into the policing. Then, guys, if we talk about the rising number of casualties into the police custody, then the reason are multifarious. For example, they could be personal, they could be they could be guided by a notion to give justice to the entire society, particularly the instant justice. There could be the political pressure in all these kind of things, and likewise. So, guys, this will be the where framework on which you'll be writing your answer. So that's it, guys, and now let's take up the newspaper analysis. Now, starting up, the first news item that we can see here is that Geo's capability to offer the 5G technology. Now, guys, this particular thing is very important. I'll tell you how. See, into the post pandemic world, the prospects of economic development has been questioned because industries such as automobile, petrochemical, etc., are into the economic slump. So, from where the growth will come? Now, guys, here, I will drag your attention to the ongoing 5G technology war, where the Huawei or the Chinese entity is leading the war. China is right now every week building tens of thousands of tower to accommodate the 5G capability. Why? Because this particular industry have the potential of more than $1 trillion into the recent future to come, and this potential has been unprecedented for any industry up to date. So China is very much inclined, and even USA is concerned with the Chinese development onto the 5G technology. And now coming to our present news item. So here Geo had said that they had developed the 5G technology and can deploy it into the next year. So guys, by this particular thing, India can also enter the 5G landscape and can reap the potential which it can offer. And guys, the growth which will be brought by the 5G capabilities, by this we can absorb the shocks that have COVID-19 pandemic brought onto the Indian economy. And not only the economic gains, but guys, if you remember, government has also announced the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, under which the self sufficiency is being talked about. And guys, if we talk about the future is guided by the concepts such as the internet of things, the fourth industrial revolution, and all of them had one common thing, that they depend onto the connected technologies. And there, because of this particular move, we don't need to depend onto the China for 5G, and thus the self sufficiency can be attained in the context of India. Now moving forward, so guys, this is one angle of economic prospect or economic growth. See, there is one more development associated here. If you remember, 2 days ago we had seen that Google is investing nearly 75,000 crore rupees in India, and as a part of that investment, now Google has also invested into the Geo platforms, and both Geo as well as Google will now also be working on developing the affordable hardware devices, mobile phones, so that the 2G population in India can switch to 5G, or at least to the 4G. Guys, if we talk about today, then there are 350 million people who are still using the obsolete 2G technology. And bringing such large people into the domain of 5G or 4G will also open the new doors of possibilities for these people, as they can get better age e-governance services. They can get much more advantages which will be coming along with the digitization. So guys, it can also bring a kind of a social welfare here. So friends, this entire event, we don't need to see into the corporate line as a kind of an engagement between two corporate entities. We need to see the national implications of this entire move, and very well you can use it into your answers. Now guys, as we are talking a lot about the 5G 4G, so we'll see briefly the comparison between the 5G and 4G. So first of all, this is a kind of an evolution of the telecom technology, and 5G is the most latest one which will be unrolled near the 2020 or 2021. Now guys, the 5G is based onto the internet protocol 6, due to which it can offer more possibilities, such as it can integrate the wearable devices which were already introduced into the 4G, and along with the wearable, it can accommodate the artificial intelligence more suitably. Further, the AI, IoT, etc. depends on to the high data transfer speed, and it has been said that the 5G can accommodate the data speed into the Gbps, whereas 4G was limited to the Mbps. Now guys, how many Gbps? That is a debate. There are different versions in that particular regard. However, National E-Governance Plan says that minimum 1 Gbps is the potential there. After that, if we go a little bit into the technical specification, so guys, bandwidth per frequency channel is up to 100 megahertz into the 4G, whereas bandwidth per frequency channel is up to 20 gigahertz into the 5G. Moreover, there are other differences also which you can read here and can use it into your prelims exam. So guys, the possibility here are much, and in this particular direction, this particular move is very important. So that's it, and now we'll move to next. Now guys, here we had clubbed two articles, one from the page number 1 and the other from the op-ed page, or simply as page number 2 of editorial. Now guys, if you remember, yesterday already we had discussed that the virtual meet will be going to held between the India and European Union onto the strategic framework and bilateral issues. So guys, that talk concluded yesterday, and there are certain takeaways which came here. First of all, let's look the importance of India EU relations. Now guys, see, I had told you earlier also that India needs the strategic and economic partners into its growth trajectory, and this becomes even more important into the post pandemic world. So guys, in this particular background, European Union as a union of 27 nations can provide a huge market to India's subdued external demand, and by this thing it can help greatly the Indian exports sector, and therefore India EU relations are very much important. Guys, this is one of the reason. Now, secondly, the European Union is the biggest foreign investor in India, and in 2018 alone, nearly 67.7 billion euros was invested by European Union to India, which accounted for 22% of the total FDI inflows. And as India is advertising it as a global favorable manufacturing destination under the Make in India, we greatly need these kind of FDIs and want them to enhance further. After that, guys, the third point of convergence between the European Union and India comes onto the democratic ethos which both the countries share. And this is even more important because India here can show leverage against the China which doesn't has the democratic credentials. And then fourthly, both India as well as EU are into the favor of a rule based world or global order, and are in favor of enhancing the multilateral institutions such as the WTO. Now guys, these institutions are in a challenge by countries such as USA, and therefore here also in preserving the multilateral order, India and EU can play an important role and can come together. So guys, all these points can be written into the answer related to India EU partnership or relations. Now coming to the present news, what are the takeaways from the yesterday's conclude EU and India meet? So guys, first of all, the framework for the strategic cooperation till 2025 has been signed, and these cooperations will centered onto the areas such as the response for COVID, the reforms into the United Nations Security Council. Then there is also a cooperation onto the civil nuclear research cooperation, as how both the countries can further develop the nuclear capabilities and can go for a future of cleaner energy. And in this particular direction, even the Euratom and Department of Atomic Energy in India had decided to come into the partnership. And guys, the most important achievement is that now again the fresh round of negotiations has been will be started between the India and European Union onto the matter of free trade agreement which has not been signed up to date, and there are large number of disputes with respect to the protectionism, with respect to the trade policies of India, and thus the common ground of in all of them would be identified into the times to come. So these are the takeaways. However, guys, at the same time there are also the irritants between the India and EU, so let's have a look on them also. The first irritant is with respect to the Citizenship Amendment Act which India brought. However, EU had said that they have a faith into the institutions of India, and the Supreme Court will be reassessing this into a favorable light. After that, into the matters of Jammu and Kashmir, there have been report of the human right abuses. So this happens to be an irritant. And guys, finally, the recently announced Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, which kinds of give an inclination that India is going towards more of protectionism, more of inward looking behavior, it also happens to be a concern. And now what could be the way forward for the India and EU? So guys, there are the strengths, there are the weaknesses, but there are common ground also where both the countries can converge. Number one is that in the Indo Pacific region, the rise of assertive China has concerned a lot of countries, and there European Union and India can come together by the way of their shared values such as the freedom of navigation, freedom of seas, the rights of the littoral countries such as Philippines, Indonesia, etc. And therefore, the ground can be found. Then, guys, the second is that onto the climate change, India and European Union can play an important role, because by 2050, European Union is planning to be the carbon neutral, and has also introduced the Green Deal, which is the new industrial policy with respect to bringing growth as well as reducing the carbon emission. Now guys, India also have such ambitions, and India too wants to become carbon neutral by 2050. So cooperation and the lessons from the Green Deal of EU can also be learned by India, and both countries can come constructively together. And third guys, both the countries can also play a constructive role in preserving the multilateral order of the world, which has been challenged by countries such as USA by exiting from WTO. So, friends, this is the entire comprehensive coverage of India and EU. I hope that any type of questions you'll be able to solve by it. So, that's it. Now, we'll move to next. Now, friends, we are into the editorial section. And this particular editorial talks about the regional response that is coming against the China into the recent wake of crisis. Now, guys, if we analyze the China's behavior, then on one hand, China is going into the mask diplomacy, where it is sending the consignments such as PPE suits, masks, etc., into the Europe as well as to the other countries in an attempt to show the good image or a good side of China. However, on to the other hand, China is actively involved into the bullying of the regional countries. For example, with India into the LAC, it has continued its bullying with the countries such as Vietnam, Malaysia, and Philippines into the South China Sea, and the same behavior has also been shown against the Australia when China announced the boycott of beef, barley, wine, and Chinese students to the Australia. So, guys, it shows a kind of a attitude of arrogance in China, and in response, now the good thing or the funny thing is that region is also responding. So we can see various instances. For example, India and Australia just held a virtual meet between the Indian Prime Minister and Australian Prime Minister, and there the new military logistic agreement was signed, which will allow each other to use their military bases and military infrastructure, and it will enhance the capabilities of both the countries. After that, guys, same kind of agreement is also being talked about between the India and Japan. Then there is the example that into the recently concluded ASEAN meet, a very strong worded declaration has been made against the China's behavior into the South China Sea. So ASEAN is also against. Then guys, we know that the Quad grouping is also becoming stronger day by day. So Quad represents four countries into the region, that is the USA, Japan, Australia, and India, and all of them are directly coming against the China. Then if you are following the newspaper regularly, we had also seen that into the Malabar exercise, India had also decided that it will be giving the space to the Australia. So again, a kind of a grouping is coming against China. Then recently, the Milk Tea Alliance is also gaining the voice onto the social media. So Milk Tea Alliance means that, see, all the countries around the China, they drink tea with the milk. However, China alone drink teas without the milk. So the nearby countries had come together in a group, and collectively they are calling themselves as a Milk Tea Alliance. And guys, it is a trend which is going on to the internet against the cyberbullying of China, which China has always carried by their army of digital soldiers. Recently, guys, there was a lot of intimidation by China against the Thailand. So into that particular response in support to the Hong Kong and Taiwan, all the countries have come together as a Milk Tea Alliance. And guys, out of this Milk Tea Alliance, the kind of an appeal for the pan Asian solidarity is also coming, and the countries are supporting the Hong Kong and Taiwan against the China. So all these are the regional responses against China. Now guys, the history tells us that whenever a crisis comes into the Asia region, then a kind of new multilateral or a new regional arrangement comes. For example, ASEAN was born in 1967. It was the time when the US Vietnam War was going on. So, ASEAN was born during the time of crisis, and we know that what important role it plays into the Asian affairs. And then there is one more example, that is the Chiang Mai initiative, which came in 1990 as a currency swap agreement into the aftermath of financial crisis between countries such as China, Japan, South Korea, and Southeast Asia. also played an important role in bringing the financial viability into the region. So during the crisis, a new arrangement comes into the Asia, and as COVID-19 is coming, again a yet arrangement come. And guys, into this particular thing, the USA, it has been said that can play an important role. Now friends, there could be your sentiments could hurt that why we are not taking the name of India, but as we are referring to the article, the article mentions about the USA, so we will take it. However, earlier also in the large number of articles, I had told you that how India can play a role of the regional powerhouse or to the global stakeholder. So if you are following regularly, you had seen that dimension also, so it is taken care of. However, now coming back to our topic, so guys, USA can play an important role here and can take away the countries from China centricism, but USA needs to be responsible and should not adopt the irresponsible foreign policy. For example, I will give you. See, number one, USA had recently pulled out from the WHO and had urged the countries such as Australia, who were looking for a greater partnership with the WHO, and had also brought a lot of countries into the jeopardy who depends on to the WHO's funding. Secondly, USA had now issued a series of visa bans, and it had impacted large number of countries such as Australia, South Asia, India. So such kind of politics of nativism should not be adopted by the USA. Now a prescription for the USA comes that what should be the USA's policy with respect to the region. Number 1, the USA should not come as a leader, rather USA should come as a supporter of the Asian rise and should not come into the capacity of hegemon, because due to hegemony only the countries are looking an alternative against the China. Then, secondly, the USA should support the multilateral processes that are going against the China. For example, an independent investigation with respect to the origin of virus. Then there is the aggressive foreign policy of China, which needs a kind of a global scrutiny. So all these attempts should be supported by the USA. Then, thirdly, the concerns of the regional powers such as Japan, Australia, as well as India should also be kept into the mind, and USA should support their bids against China as well as onto the global stage. Fourthly, guys, the forums such as G7 are to be expanded into the G11 or G10. So, onto that particular thing, USA should be progressive and should give more space. Fifthly, onto the lines of China, USA should not adopt the aggressionist policies such as diverting the mask shipments to their own country. For example, recently we had seen that USA also threatened India with respect to the export of the hydroxychloroquine, and all after that, USA virtually bought all the COVID-19 medicine of remdesivir. So these kind of things should also not be adopted, and by doing these kind of things, USA can provide a viable alternative, and together by the regional backlash and USA's leadership, a kind of solution can be met out here. So guys, that's all about this particular article, and now we'll move to next. Now guys, this particular article raises the issue of stereotyping during the times of pandemic. So guys, as the pandemic is going on, the concept of a super spreader has become very popular. So, guys, before going into the super spreader, see, there is one concept into the pandemics, that is R naught. So, R naught means the potential of one person to infect has as how many people. So, if R naught is 2, then it means that one person will be infecting the 2 people. If R naught is 3, so it means that one person can infect the 3 people. So this R naught is for the common and for the majority of people. However, there are certain type of people who has an ability that they can infect hundreds and even thousands of people, and thus some people are called as the super spreaders. Now, why some people become the super spreader? This particular question has not been solved till now, but there could be certain possible explanations. For example, some people have the capability to shed higher viral loads than the others. Second could be that the nature of their occupation or their service is such that they come in contact with a large number of people. Third, their occupation not involves the large number of people, but they all are bound into some confined space where the infection rate can be even more higher. Fourthly, many a times these super spreaders are asymptomatic for large time, and without their knowledge they are infecting other number of people. So guys, these super spreaders are always a cause of concern in all the pandemics or infectious diseases. And into the past few days, we had seen a large number of people, such as some fruit vendor or some businessman or some official, to be a super spreader. But many a times, a large groups are also labeled as a super spreader. For example, the vegetable vendors, the migrant people who came back their home, they were called as the super spreaders. And guys, the moment these groups are labeled with this, a kind of a stereotype develops against these kind of people. And whenever a stereotype is negative, it leads to a large number of repercussions, and they are being noticed into India right now. So the implications of these stereotypes are discrimination. For example, Kerala banned their border with Karnataka because they said that the expatriates who are coming from the Karnataka might be the super spreaders. Secondly, there was also a report where the Dadar and Nagar Haveli banned the vegetable and fruit vendors from Gujarat to enter into their state. So it leads to discrimination. Then there could be the hostility and even aggression. Guys, just when the pandemic started, there were certain members of Tablighi Jamaat who were condemned as super spreaders, and a country-wide wrath and condemnation began. And many a times it also concluded into certain violent events. So, guys, this could be a case. And fourthly, a long-term negative attitude builds against a particular community, and in total, they impact the social fabric of the society, and the harmony and fraternity cannot be maintained. After that, these negative stereotypes or the stereotype of super spreader is often directed against the vulnerable sections, for example, migrants, and the instances of injustice against them even increases. So therefore, here's a responsibility of the state, that state should step and should take efforts to stop this condemnation as well as stereotyping. Therefore, state needs to take certain initiative. For example, increasing the testing so that the super spreaders could be identified into the times before actually they turn into the super spreader. Secondly, the privacy of the people who are said to be super spreader should be respected, and their treatment should be carried rather than publicizing their name into the media. Then thirdly, the infrastructural support to the livelihood should also be provided who are the super spreaders, because isolating them will be impacting their economic well-being. Fourthly, they should be given the support of preventive gear, such as they should be given free of cost masks, sanitizers, and all other hygiene related kits. After that, the government should refrain in using the name such as a super spreader, as it gives a negative message into the society. So guys, this is also one of the dimension which is developing amidst the pandemic of COVID-19. Please keep this into your mind with respect to GS1 and GS2. So that's it. Now we'll move to next. Now, guys, we can see here that the Prime Minister has appealed with respect to skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. Guys, this particular thing can be used is as a reference into the skill development questions in either GS paper number 2 or GS paper number 3. So, guys, recently the 5th year anniversary of the Skill India mission was celebrated. So under Skill India mission, we know that we want to take the advantage of our young demography, or we want to reap the demographic dividend. But the problem of adequate skill comes in between, and here the Skill India mission comes handy. So guys, under Skill India mission, government had started various initiatives such as the National Skill Development Mission. Then there is the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. After that, there is the skill loan scheme. Then there is the Rural India skill. So all these schemes are under the Skill India mission, which is a kind of an umbrella initiative. Moreover, here it has also been said that there is a difference between the knowledge and the skill. Knowledge is learning the theoretical aspect, whereas a skill is the practical application of that particular knowledge. So these are the takeaways which are made onto the World Youth Skill Day, which also happens to be the anniversary of the Skill India mission. So that's it, and now we'll move to next. Now guys, here we can see that for the first time indigenous vaccine for pneumonia has been developed, and it has also been given permission by the Drug Controller General of India. Now guys, up till now India was dependent onto the imported vaccines for the pneumonia, but now the pneumococcal polysaccharide conjugate vaccine has been developed, which will be administered to the infants and will protect them against the streptococcus pneumonia. Now, guys, if we talk about the pneumonia, then pneumonia impacts the lungs and impacts the breathing capacity of a human being. So, guys, here we can see the alveoli or the sacs, which helps into the exchange of oxygen or the gases. Now, into the condition of pneumonia, there occurs the inflammation into the alveolar wall, and the alveoli air spaces they filled with the fluid, because of which there is the problem into the breathing. And even into the critical cases of covid-19 also, a person suffers with the pneumonia as covid-19 impacts the lung region, and there is also the inflammation into the lung. So guys, now these diseases will be treated by the indigenous vaccine which has been developed by the Serum Institute. So that's it, now we'll move to next. Now, guys, just for a reference, we can see here that it has been said that India's population will peak by 2047. So, this particular thing has been sent by a article which was published into the Lancet, which is a very reputed medical journal. Further, it has also been said that by the end of the century, India's population, after peaking, will also be declining and will reach around 1 billion at the end of the century. So, our population will decline after reaching a peak. However, still much more needs to be done if India needs to meet the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We need to have a peak earlier, and the population should not only peak earlier, rather it should decline. After that, guys, see, this peaking period has also been disputed by various other reports. However, that is not our concern, because such kind of hairline details are not important for our exam. But one concept has been mentioned repeatedly here, guys, the total fertility rate. So total fertility rate means that how many children will be given birth by a woman. So, a total fertility rate of less than 2.1 means that the population will decline. More than 2.1 means that it continuously will expand. So, guys, it has been said that when we will be reaching the 2.47, our total fertility rate will come down. Moreover, guys, it has been said that at 200, India will be the most populous country, and the five largest countries will be India, Nigeria, China, USA, and Pakistan. So, guys, these are certain findings here you can use with respect to the questions onto the demography. However, too much of hairline data with respect to the other countries are not that much important. So, that's it. Now, we'll move to next. Now, friends, in our GS paper number 2, the topic of hunger has been clearly given. So, into the hunger related, malnutrition related question, we can use a reference, that is the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report, which is popularly called as the SOFI report. So, now the 2020 report has came, and according to the SOFI report of 2020, it has been said that the world is not on track to meet the goal of zero hunger by 2030. So if you remember the sustainable developmental goals, then the SDG number 2 talks about the removing hunger or the zero hunger by 2030. So by SOFI it has been said that it will not be possible. Moreover, a large number of people will be going hungry into the coming time due to the economic recession that has been brought by the COVID-19. It has been said that between 8.3 crore and 13 crore people globally are likely to go hungry this year. So this particular data can also be used when you are writing answers onto the implications or effect by the COVID-19. Now guys, if we talk about that who publishes this report, then there are certain agency involved here. So it is jointly released by the Food and Agricultural Organization, then there is the International Fund for Agricultural Development, then comes the UNICEF, then comes the World Food Program, and finally the WHO. So there are the five agencies which are associated. So as you know that into the past, questions on agencies and reports have been asked, so guys, please be careful here. Further, it has also been said into the report that Asia will be the region which will be having the largest number of undernourished people, and Africa will be the second after the Asia. So guys, these are the major issues associated here with respect to the hunger. Use them into your exam. So that's it. Now we'll move to next. Now, friends, here we can see that the USA government had rolled back the restrictive rule with respect to the international student visa. So, if you remember, just a few days back, we did the entire issue onto the visa that is going on, that is the H1B visas, L1 visa, L2 visas, etc. So, guys, we had also seen the F1 visa and M1 visa. So F1 visas are issued to the academic courses students, M1 visas are issued to the vocational courses for the student. So it has been said that all the students who are living in USA but their classes are being taken onto the online medium. Why online? Because the COVID-19 has started. So their visas will be cancelled and they need to go back to their countries. Now, alone Indian students are more than 2 lakh, and there are more than million students from the different countries. And this particular move jeopardized those students as they are also working in USA through various programs such as the optional practical training OPT as well as the CPT, which stands for the curricular practical training, and are hired by the MNCs as well as companies. Hence, it was said that such kind of actions by the government, such as curtailing the visa, will not be good for the business interest. And in that particular direction, even the technology giants such as Google, Facebook, etc., showed their reservation. And in response, such rules have now been finally dropped. However, it is still not clear whether the new students who have not enrolled, and if they will enroll into the online courses, then new visas will be given or not. So guys, that thing has to be looked when it comes. So that's it into this particular direction. Now we'll move to next. Now friends, here's one more issue. See, we had seen recently, just a few days back, that the China has finally imposed the national security legislation onto the Hong Kong, and now the China will have the authority onto the mainland. It can carry the arrest, can charge people onto the charges of terrorism, slander, etc. So guys, this national security legislation which has been imposed is seen to be curtailing the entire autonomy and the structure of Hong Kong. So into this particular direction, various countries have gave their reaction. And the USA had also acted by removing the special status which was earlier granted to the Hong Kong. So under special status, a large number of preferential treatments were given, and a virtual duty free trade used to occur between the Hong Kong and the USA. But now all those privileges have been cancelled, and not only these have been cancelled, rather the sanctions have also been imposed onto the Hong Kong by signing the Hong Kong Autonomy Act. So guys, this particular act authorizes sanctions against the Chinese official as well as Hong Kong police, which has been assumed that they will be infringing onto the city's autonomy. So actually, by the Hong Kong Autonomy Act, the USA gets a superior power by which it can treat the Hong Kong officials, Hong Kong institutions through their own understanding. Now, guys, in response, obviously, China has slammed all the sanctions, all the rolling back of advantages, as well as the Hong Kong Autonomy Act as being malicious and as an attempt to degrade or to devastate the entire Hong Kong as being a financial gateway. So guys, this is the issue which is going on here, and it could be a culmination of series of steps which started when first China said that they will impose a law, second they actually implemented, during this time, the USA had earlier warned that if they will go with that, they will withdraw the special status, and finally it has also been done. So guys, this is about this particular issue. So that's it, and now we'll be going to the question section. Friends, please pause the video and try to answer the question. So question number 1 is with respect to the Pragyata guidelines. Please identify the right code. Now question number 2 is with respect to the Tatya Top. Please identify the correct code. Question number 3 is with respect to the skill development program in India. Please identify the right code. And the question number 4 is with respect to the bilateral trade and investment agreement. Please identify the right option. And now guys, the main question for today is from GS paper number 2. So question says that the EU and India have much in common, but the trade talks have not progressed well. What are the issues that are holding back signing of free trade agreement between India and EU? Also enumerate the benefits for India once the BTIA is finalized. So please write it, and tomorrow we will discuss the framework for this particular question. So guys, that's it. I hope you are liking the video. Thank you so much.